Most men don't realize this, but many of the challenges, mixed signals, emotional shifts, and sudden changes in a woman's behavior are not random. They are not accidents. And in most cases, they are not manipulation in the evil sense either. They are psychological tests. Subconscious, emotional, deeply rooted tests that women use to assess a man's strength, confidence, emotional stability, and long-term value. The problem is not that women test men. The problem is that most men fail these tests without even knowing they were being tested. And when a man fails too many times, attraction quietly fades. Respect drops. And the woman herself often cannot explain why she suddenly feels different. To understand this, we need to start with a hard truth. Attraction is not built on words. It is built on emotional safety, consistency, and perceived strength. Women by nature are more attuned to emotional patterns than men. They read tone, reactions, posture, and emotional responses far more than logical explanations. When a woman tests a man, she is not asking a question. She is observing a reaction. One of the earliest tests women use is the confidence test. This often shows up as mild disagreement, teasing or questioning a man's opinion. She may say something slightly dismissive about his plan, his choice, or even his taste. She is watching closely to see whether he collapses, becomes defensive, or calmly stands his ground. A man who immediately explains himself nervously, overjustifies, or seeks approval signals insecurity. A man who remains relaxed, amused, and grounded signals confidence. Another common test is the boundary test. This happens when a woman pushes limits just a little. She might arrive late without explanation. She might cancel plans last minute. She might interrupt or dominate a conversation. These moments are not about disrespect at first. They are about seeing whether a man has standards. A man who tolerates everything silently teaches her how to treat him. A man who calmly addresses behavior without anger shows self-respect. Women feel safer with men who have boundaries because boundaries signal stability. Then there is the emotional control test. This is one of the most important and most failed tests. A woman may intentionally or unintentionally trigger jealousy, frustration, or uncertainty. She might mention another man casually. She might pull back communication. She might seem emotionally distant for a short time. This is not always a conscious game. Often, it is her nervous system checking whether the man can remain emotionally regulated under pressure. A man who becomes anxious, controlling, accusatory, or needy fails this test. A man who stays composed, focused on his own life, and emotionally steady passes it. Emotional control signals leadership. It tells her that this man will not collapse under stress, conflict, or uncertainty. Another powerful test is the ambition and direction test. Women are deeply attracted to men who are going somewhere in life. Not necessarily rich, but purposeful. When a woman asks about a man's goals, work, or future, she is not collecting information. She is measuring direction. A man who complains constantly, feels lost without action, or blames others for his situation sends a signal of stagnation. A man who speaks calmly about progress, learning, and forward movement signals momentum. Women also test consistency. Many men can perform confidence for a short time. Very few can sustain it. A woman watches whether a man's behavior remains stable over weeks and months. Is he respectful only when things are good, or also during stress? Is he confident only when she is affectionate, or also when she pulls back slightly? Consistency builds trust. Inconsistency destroys attraction quietly. One of the most misunderstood tests is the vulnerability test. Contrary to popular belief, vulnerability does not mean emotional dumping or weakness. Women test vulnerability by observing whether a man can express emotions without losing control. Can he talk about challenges without sounding defeated? Can he open up without needing reassurance? Controlled vulnerability shows emotional intelligence. Uncontrolled emotional dependence signals risk. There is also the independence test. Women observe how much a man's life revolves around them. A man who abandons hobbies, friends, routines, and goals to center his world around a woman unintentionally creates pressure. That pressure kills attraction. A man who maintains his identity, schedule, and purpose while making space for connection creates balance. Balance feels safe. Obsession feels unstable. Another subtle test is the reaction to success test. Women watch how men handle wins. Does he become arrogant? Does he seek validation? Or does he remain grounded and generous? How a man handles success reveals his inner stability, just as much as how he handles failure. Now here is the critical insight most men miss. These tests are not designed to eliminate men. They are designed to identify safety, From a psychological perspective, women are wired to assess risk. Emotional risk, relational risk, long-term stability risk. Testing is a filtering mechanism, not a punishment system. When men understand this, everything changes. Instead of reacting emotionally, they respond intentionally. Instead of trying to impress, they remain authentic. Instead of chasing approval, they embody self-respect. The biggest mistake men make is trying to pass tests consciously. Women can sense performance. What actually passes tests is inner alignment, confidence that comes from self-trust, emotional control built through discipline, purpose developed through action. A man who understands his values does not panic when challenged. A man who respects himself does not beg for validation. A man who is emotionally grounded does not fear temporary distance. These traits cannot be faked long-term. They must be built. When a woman feels that a man is centered, emotionally safe, and self-directed, she relaxes. Tests decrease. Trust increases. Attraction deepens. Not because he controlled her behavior, but because he mastered his own. So the next time you feel confused by a woman's behavior, pause. Ask yourself not why is she doing this, but what is being observed right now. Your reaction is the answer she is looking for. And when you stop reacting emotionally and start responding from strength, you stop being tested constantly, because you already passed.